What does betrayal look like? For me, it was a single sentence buried in my inbox. Effective immediately. Your base salary has been reduced by 40%. No greeting. No explanation. No signature, just that. It arrived at 6:12 p.m., right as I was finalizing the compliance language for a $19 million deal. I'd spent the past year building from the ground up. I didn't scream. I didn't forward the email to my team. I just sat there, cursor blinking, heart somehow not. The office around me had gone quiet. The buzz of keyboards and printer clicks had faded. People had gone home I hadn't noticed. My world stopped with that line of text. I reopened the email. Read it again. It still said the same thing. I reached for my coffee cup, but my hand stopped midair. Even that small motion felt strange, like I no longer belonged in my own body, 40% gone without a word, not laid off, not suspended, just silently erased, like they wanted me to keep showing up, working, smiling, while slowly phasing myself out. The part that gutted me wasn't the money. It was the cowardice. I had poured everything into that project. Navigated time zones, personalities, and impossible deadlines. I knew the client better than most people knew their own families. I was the reason the deal existed. And still this. I stared out the window. The city below me was glowing, moving alive. And I felt like a ghost. I once believed that being indispensable meant being safe. But now I saw the truth. Sometimes they wait until the job is done, and then they pull the floor out from under you. Elliot Rains? That name pulsed at the back of my mind like a dull ache. He was the one who'd been hovering near my project for months, smiling just a bit too much, asking for updates he never used. I thought he was learning. I was wrong. He wasn't shadowing me. He was preparing to take credit for what I built. I closed my laptop, sat in silence, let the fluorescent hum fill the space where my heartbeat used to be. Tomorrow I'd walk in like nothing had changed. They'd think I was obedient, wounded, maybe. Quiet, definitely. But I wasn't planning to fade out. They took my salary. They tried to erase me quietly. But the thing about ghosts, sometimes they come back just long enough to burn the whole house down. I used to believe the work would speak for itself. That if you showed up early, stayed late, answered every call, even the ones that came at 200 a.m. from Brussels or Sao Paulo, you'd be seen. Maybe not applauded, but at least respected. The $19 million deal wasn't handed to me. I earned it. From the first outreach email to the 23rd revision of the delivery schedule, I was the thread that held everything together. I smoothed over cultural missteps, translated executive speak into legal terms, and built trust where there was none. I didn't do it for a bonus. I did it because I believed in what we were building. And foolishly, I believed in the people standing beside me. I remember the first big client pitch. It was high stakes, 7 board members from Geneva. In a glass-walled conference room, I had prepped for days, slides, market impact analysis, risk mitigation models. I knew it inside out, but Elliot had just been promoted, new face, polished voice. Good suit. When he turned to me and said, "Do you mind if I take the lead? I think they'll respond better to presence." I hesitated, then smiled. "Of course," I said. "Let's make it count." I handed him the remote. He fumbled through 2 slides I'd built from scratch, mispronounced the client's name, got the metric conversion wrong, but he had charm. He recovered. The room laughed. The meeting ended with applause. Afterwards, he said, "We're a good team." I wanted to believe that. In truth, I kept doing the work, and he kept appearing where cameras were. It was fine. I wasn't in this for the recognition. Until the email. Until I realized the person I'd shielded, supported, even promoted, was the one who decided I was expendable. Now when I look back at that pitch room, I don't feel proud, I feel naive. Not because I gave him a chance, but because I thought giving him the spotlight would protect me from being erased. Turns out I handed him the match, and he struck it the moment the lights got too bright for me. The deal is still days from being signed. He's still on every call now, smiling, summarizing updates. I prepared holding client hands. I once earned the trust of, but behind the curtain, I'm still here, still watching, still holding pieces only. I know how to assemble. They think the hard part is over, but the most delicate parts of the deal, the ones the client requested last minute, the ones only I bothered to write down by hand, those haven't been delivered yet, and I'm not sure I'm going to. The next morning, I walked into the office like nothing had cracked. My blazer was pressed. My hair pulled back the way I always wore it when I needed to be taken seriously. I didn't touch the email. Didn't forward it, didn't even print it out. I just walked straight to Elliot's office and knocked once. He looked up from his phone, blinked, like he wasn't expecting me though. He absolutely was. And smiled, that smile, the one that curved only half his mouth. The one that said, I win. Hey, Sarali, he said, voice warm like we were friends. Grabbing coffee. Come in. Everything okay? I closed the door behind me. Slowly I saw the salary notice last night. He nodded. Yeah. Listen, it's just temporary budget stuff. Nothing personal, I said. Nothing. He leaned back, lacing his fingers behind his head like he'd just explained away a parking ticket. You know how it is. Quarter-end stress. Leadership wants to see tighter margins before we close big numbers. Still. I said nothing. He waited for me to protest, to plead. I gave him silence. I watched the way he avoided my eyes for just a second too long, the way his voice rushed to fill the gaps I left. He was trying to sell me something, but I wasn't buying any more. And that's when it clicked. This wasn't about budget. It never was. This was about removal, about erasure, not dramatic. Not with security guards or cardboard boxes. Soft surgical quiet. They didn't want a scene. They just wanted me gone before the cameras rolled. I had carried this deal in both hands for months. Now that it was days from being signed, he was trimming the edges, cutting away the parts that didn't fit into his photo op. Meaning me? I appreciate the heads up, I finally said, keeping my voice as even as possible. He looked surprised, then pleased. Like I'd passed some kind of test. Good, he said. Knew you'd understand. You've always been steady. Steady. Not brilliant, not essential, just steady. I nodded once, turned and walked out of his office. And I didn't cry, didn't shake, didn't slam the door, but inside something shifted. Every memory I had of helping him, of giving him credit, in meetings of stepping aside. When the spotlight turned, now felt hollow. He thought I'd roll over. He thought I'd keep quiet. Stay useful, then fade. But I wasn't planning to disappear. I was planning to watch, to wait. And when the moment came, let's just say I'd be ready. Silence became my weapon. Not because I was weak, because I finally understood how power works. In rooms like ours, it belongs to the one who knows when not to speak. After the meeting with Elliot, I stopped engaging. I let him have his stage, let him walk into briefings with half facts I had written, let him glow under praise from clients who still thought I was looped in, but quietly, I began taking inventory. I reviewed every email chain, every red line markup, every version of the contract our legal team had touched, and I found what I had been hoping for and what I feared. 2 versions. Version A. The one I personally finalized after months of negotiation. Legally compliant, approved by counsel, balanced in scope, timeline, and deliverables, ready to sign. Version B. The one Elliot had sent out himself 2 weeks ago without review. Bloated promises, compressed timelines, carbon offset figures that weren't just optimistic, they were fabricated. He dressed it up, trimmed the edges, and shoved it across the line because he wanted the win fast. And the worst part, the client signed it, assuming it was the final version. Only Elliot. His assistant and I knew that version B existed, but only I had both copies. Version A sat printed, stamped, and sealed in my personal fireproof drawer locked. Version B floated on the company's shared drive, untouched by legal, quietly catastrophic. I remember sitting at my desk that night, both drafts side by side, the clean truth, and the messy lie. I could have sent a correction, could have flagged the error. But I didn't. Instead, I folded version A, slid it into an envelope, and tucked it back into my drawer. Like a secret I wasn't ready to share, because in that moment I realized they think I'm out of the game, but what they don't know is that I'm the only one holding the rulebook. Elliot believed cutting my salary made me irrelevant. What he didn't understand was that I'm the firewall. The client had requested final compliance clauses in handwriting. They wanted to meet in person. They trusted me, not him, to deliver the final signal before signature. And I hadn't sent anything yet. I kept my head down that week, smiled when spoken to, answered only what was asked, but inside I was calculating, letting him get closer and closer to a finish line built on a lie. And when the time came, I wasn't going to push him. I was going to let him run straight into it. By Thursday, Elliot was glowing. The company had sent out media invites. The conference room had been cleared and rebranded into a global sustainability lounge, complete with glass displays and meaningless taglines. Reporters were scheduled to arrive. Cameras, backdrops, champagne flutes. It was all happening. And Elliot, he was treating it like his personal coronation. I watched from a distance, never invited into the meetings, never asked for input. Not that I expected to be, that was the whole point. I had been carefully cropped out of every frame, but they'd forgotten one thing. You can't crop someone out of a contract, especially when that person holds the only clean version. Still, I smiled when Elliot passed me in the hallway. Big day tomorrow, he said. Hope you're getting some rest, I smiled back. Wouldn't miss it. What he didn't know, what he never even thought to question, was that everything he was preparing was sitting on a fault line, and I was standing over the trigger. That afternoon, I noticed his assistant hovering near my desk. She was friendly, nervous in that intern sort of way, said she needed help locating a backup version of the contract draft for internal alignment. I raised an eyebrow. You mean the one Elliot sent? She nodded too quickly. Yes, just in case. You know, tech issues. I handed her a USB. It contained version B, the messy one, the one he had already sent without approval, the one she was clearly being told to make sure matched any future official copies. What she didn't know. I had already stripped my laptop. Every file worth anything. Every revision note compliance clause was sitting on an encrypted external drive locked in my apartment. My work computer, just spreadsheets, PowerPoint slides, and for fun, the outdated version of the first draft with a typo in the client's name. I watched her walk away like a pawn sent to poke a sleeping queen. Let them search, let them compare. They would find what they were looking for, but not what they needed. By evening, I saw Elliot pacing the floor of his office, phone pressed tight to his ear. Frustration rippled through the glass wall, though he never once looked in my direction. Good. Let him feel the pressure. Let him worry. The client might ask questions he's not equipped to answer. Let him doubt the very version he's trying to present as final. I wasn't interfering. I wasn't sabotaging. I was letting him do all the talking. Because the closer he got to the stage, the more likely he was to trip over the one thing he never truly understood. The truth isn't always loud. Sometimes it waits, patiently sharpened, like a blade. And tomorrow, under the lights surrounded by applause and fake smiles, that blade was going to drop. The signing ceremony was scheduled for 10 Suzuian. By 9:20, the lobby had turned into a gallery of illusion floral arrangements. Champagne bottles, chilling in ice, camera crews setting up their angles. PR interns darted around like bees fixing lanyards, straightening banners, whispering instructions into Bluetooth earpieces, and Elliot was already posing in front of the Norwal Energy backdrop navy suit, perfectly tailored tie pin shining under the lights. He greeted the clients as they entered, each handshake, rehearsed, each smile a little too wide. I stood off to the side, clipboard in hand. No real reason to hold one, except that it gave me a role. A shadow among the spectacle. The clients arrived right on time. Their lead rep, Julia Keene, was all efficiency, her stride sharp, her tone clipped. She didn't waste time on flattery. She went straight to the table. The documents were laid out. The ceremonial pens. Elliot began his speech. Polished, over-rehearsed. He thanked everyone involved, nodded to departments that had little to do with the deal. My name wasn't mentioned. I didn't flinch. As he finished, Julia picked up the contract. Page 123, her eyes scanning with the kind of attention that only comes from years of reading things others hope you won't. And then she paused, page 8, paragraph 6. Her brow furrowed, just to confirm. She said, her voice calm, but cutting, this delivery schedule reflects the updated terms we discussed last month. Yes, Elliot blinked. His smile faltered for a second. Just a flicker. But it was there. Absolutely, he said. That timeline was aligned across our teams. She looked back down. Because this states June 1st for Phase 1 delivery, she said slowly. But we agreed to August 15th with a grace period. That's not what's here. The room changed instantly. A ripple, as if the temperature dropped by 5 degrees. Our legal counsel shifted in his seat. A PR manager's pen fell and clattered onto the floor. Elliot tried to recover. I believe that's just a formatting discrepancy, perhaps. An outdated copy. Julia raised a hand. Is there a finalized version reflecting our revisions? Silence. Elliot looked toward his assistant. She paled, fumbled with her tablet, looked back up. Helpless. I can have someone pull it right away. Elliot said, voice too fast now. We'll get it resolved. Julia closed the folder, her jaw tightened. I don't move forward on assumptions. And just like that, the performance started to crack. Camera flashes stopped. No one was smiling, and I stood still. Clipboard pressed lightly to my hip, saying nothing, not yet, because this was the sound of fault lines splitting, and all I had to do was wait for the building to fall. The silence in the room had a weight to it. Julia Keene sat with the contract closed in front of her, her expression unreadable. Elliot stood just a few feet away, sweating lightly beneath the artificial lights, trying to look calm while panic simmered under his skin. Around them, the room had frozen. No one dared to speak. The cameras, once clicking like clockwork, had gone still. PR managers exchanged looks. Legal counsel sat stiffly, hands clasped too tightly in their laps. Elliot's assistant was pretending to scroll through her tablet, though her fingers trembled. And I stepped forward, not with drama, not with a raised voice or shaking fists. Just 3 steady steps. I didn't look at Elliot. I didn't need to. He felt it the moment I moved. I faced Julia directly and spoke evenly, clearly, like I was reading from a prepared statement, though I wasn't. That version wasn't approved. I recommend we pause the signing. That was all one sentence, one truth. It landed in the room like the click of a loaded gun. Julia looked up at me. Finally, she saw me, not as the silent figure in the corner, not as a background coordinator, but as the person she'd spent the last year working with, the one who'd joined every call, revised every clause, traveled overnight when negotiations stalled. The real bridge. Her lips pressed into a thin line. She nodded once, slowly. Thank you, she said, quiet but firm. She turned back to Elliot. I want all official versions sent directly from legal. Until then, we hold Elliot. Opened his mouth, but no words came out. He looked at me finally, and for the first time, there was no arrogance in his eyes. Just realization. Just fear. I didn't gloat. I didn't smile. I stood still, hands calmly at my sides, heart steady. Because this wasn't revenge. It was recognition. I wasn't here to destroy anything. I was here to protect what I had built and call out what had been twisted. The press had begun to quietly pack up. One reporter whispered to another, already drafting a headline. Legal was murmuring into phones. The champagne was still in the bucket, untouched. The moment had passed, and nothing had gone as Elliot planned. He walked over to me, finally breaking the space between us. "What the hell are you doing?" he muttered through clenched teeth. I looked him dead in the eye, correcting the record. That was all. Then I walked away, past the cameras, past the silence, past the people who now looked at me very, very differently. And as I stepped into the hallway, I didn't feel angry. I felt centered because I hadn't needed to yell. I hadn't needed to fight. All I had to do was tell the truth and let the lie collapse under its own weight. By noon, the room was empty. The signing table had been cleared. The velvet folders were gone. The champagne unopened and wheeled back to storage without a sound. Julia Keene and her team had left without ceremony. No handshake, no second chances, just a tight-lipped statement to the PR team on their way out. We'll be reevaluating our position. We don't move forward with partners who can't manage internal consistency. That was the nice version. The real message. You lost us. I watched from the hallway as Elliot followed them out, attempting one last salvage pitch, words I couldn't hear but didn't need to. His body language said enough desperate overreaching, unraveling. When he turned back, his face had changed. The mask was off, not anger, not defiance. Panic. By 2:00 p.m., the first headlines hit the industry wires. Norwal client walks out during 19 deal signing, legal oversight suspected by 3:15. I was called into HR, not for a reprimand, not for a thank you either. Just a meeting with the head of legal, the compliance officer, and someone from risk mitigation. A man I had never seen before, but who took notes with unusual intensity. They asked if I had been aware of the incorrect contract version being circulated. I said yes. They asked why I didn't stop the signing sooner. I paused, then answered truthfully. Because no one asked me to be part of it. They had nothing to say after that. At 5:02 p.m., I logged out of my email, closed my laptop, slid a plain white envelope across the desk to HR. Inside my resignation letter. No drama, no accusations, no bullet points or demands. Just one clean sentence. Effective immediately. I resigned from my position. I didn't leave a forwarding address. Didn't CC anyone, didn't even clear out my desk. I had already taken everything that mattered weeks ago. The last thing I saw before stepping into the elevator was Elliot being led into a glass-walled conference room by two people in dark suits. Door closed, blinds drawn. There would be an investigation. There always is after a fall that public, but that was no longer my concern. I stepped out into the cold afternoon air and felt something I hadn't in months, maybe years. Freedom. Not just from the company, from the pretending, from the giving and giving until there was nothing left of me but bullet points on someone else's slide. They had tried to erase me quietly, so I responded in kind. No explosion, no emails leaked, no vengeance campaign. I had simply told the truth and walked away while the building burned. And as I turned the corner, I didn't look back, because whatever came next, I was finally the one choosing it. It had been a week since I walked out. 7 days without emails, without 3 a.m., calls without the weight of holding something together that was never designed to support me. I had deleted every calendar alert tied to Norwal. I had returned my badge. I had turned off notifications. And yet, when the call came, I knew exactly who it was. The number was unfamiliar, but the voice instantly recognizable. Julia Keene. There was no small talk, no pretense. She didn't ask how I was adjusting or whether I missed the company. She got straight to the point. We're re-engaging the project, but not with Norwal. I sat up straighter. We want to resume negotiations independently, and we'd like you to lead it. Not as an employee. As a consultant. I didn't answer right away a week ago. I might have hesitated. I might have asked if Elliot was aware, or if Norwal would be informed, but not now. Not after everything. She continued, We don't want middlemen. We want the woman who kept us honest, the one who actually understood the scope, the stakes, and the integrity behind the numbers. Those words landed deeper than I expected. Not praise recognition. Not for loyalty. Not for sacrifice, but for competence, for presence, for impact. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I had to earn my seat at the table. I already had it. I accept. I said just that, no excitement, no flourish. No, just a calm agreement from someone who knew exactly what she brought to the room. The next day, a contract arrived in my inbox. A real one, my name at the top. My rate. My terms. No backdoor edits, no hidden clauses. I read every line anyway. Not because I didn't trust them, but because I trusted myself to never stop being thorough. When I signed and sent it back, I didn't feel the jolt of adrenaline that used to come with big wins. I felt something better. Steadiness, because this time no one could take it away. There were no politics behind me, no spotlight being shifted at the last second. Just me standing where I had always belonged, only now on my own terms. Later that evening, as the sky turned a deep shade of blue, I sat by the window of my apartment, coffee in hand, watching the world move as if nothing had happened. But something I had stopped trying to be necessary to people who didn't see me, and I had become essential to the people who did. I never returned to the office. There was no need. No last lunch. No goodbyes. The version of me that had waited for recognition in that place no longer existed. In the weeks that followed, Norwal tried to save face. Press releases were issued. Words like internal restructuring and alignment of leadership vision were tossed around like confetti. But the industry knew they always do. Elliot was quietly removed from the executive board. His name vanished from the website overnight. The headlines never mentioned him again. There was no scandal, no press conference, just silence. The kind of silence reserved for people who were once promising and then quietly became problems. Meanwhile, I built something new. Client by client, deal by deal. No politics, no middlemen, no smiling pretenders standing in front of my work. And yet I wasn't angry. I never needed revenge. I just needed clarity, and I got it. Because sometimes justice doesn't come with applause or fireworks. Sometimes it arrives quietly through an empty seat on a board and a phone that never rings again. Sometimes it's enough just to outlast the lie. I stood still when everyone else was performing. I told the truth when it was easier to disappear. I waited, and the truth did what it always does. It surfaced. I never raised my voice. I just waited for the lie to expire. If you've ever been erased, overlooked, or replaced, know this: you don't have to fight to be seen. You just have to outlive their version of the story. And when the time is right, you write your own. If the story resonated with you, let us know in the comments. Hit like, share it with someone who needs it, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories of quiet strength, bold truth, and poetic justice. Your story isn't over. We're just getting started.